Hello, and welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today, I've been trying something a little different. I'm continuing the experimentation with the 1x2 paper. In this case, it's a little over 7x15, and it is the Legion Stonehenge, the 90-pound, slightly toned, 100% cotton. And the other part is working with just two tubes of paint, but not mixing them, using one for representing the sky and one for representing the land. Now, I just completed one and did a video on it with ultramarine and burnt sienna, and here it is. It's interesting. It is me trying to pursue a different type of aesthetic. However, just in post-painting this and during, we see how warm the burnt sienna is compared to the ultramarine. And my thought now is to maybe work with two cooler colors. I'm going to try the Raw Umber and the ultramarine. I'm also going to use the sky as the blue and just the land and the water as the raw umber. If I mess up saying raw umber, I apologize. It's just that it's very infrequent that I would use that by itself. I would most likely use the raw sienna or things like that. So anyway, wetting this in, making some interesting variety in the sky. I went down to about half the page. I'm kind of curious if I should have went a little bit higher with that. The mixing around the areas where places meet kind of seems a little inconsequential, so I'm not too concerned about that after the first experiment. It's all kind of flowing in an interesting pattern right here due to slight buckling. I'll leave that on the side. I have this other hake brush, a medium Ron Ranson hake brush as well, not as worn as the other. We're going to use that to go in to the land. Let me grab another paper towel real quick. I use the shop rag paper towels. They are absolutely perfect for absorption, cleaning, wiping, and swiping. Now, part of it also kind of gives me a little bit more tonalist ideals and feelings along those lines. These two colors, so I'm looking at it through the camera, do seem to work a little bit better together. Maybe it is because they are both on the cooler side of things. It has a very, I don't know, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but it has a very, Percy, religious type feel to it. Maybe it's the bright, the swooping in, and that light right there. All right, so let's put this in. Surely this color combination has been done before. But sometimes, you may not have seen it. Then you could do something, people might say, hey, that's like so-and-so. Then you can see what other artists have experimented with. Wash off this brush some. Let's get some clouds in the sky using the paper towel. we go. All right. Also, I felt in the previous that texture was key, so I'm really looking for texture. There we go, some horizontal strokes. I'm gonna have to play around more. It's funny, switching up experiments like this, where it feels a little bit more restricting. But the restriction gives kind of a looseness to it where I'm not letting myself touch the sky at all, or I might overlap some trees whenever it's dry, but I'm holding back from this whole area now. Okay. Now, of course, you're always welcome to follow along. You have my express permission to sign your own name and sell anything you do when you follow along. I want you guys to have fun and have money for art supplies. And if you ever want to support this channel, I have the Patreon with exclusive videos. A huge thank you to everybody that supports through there. And there we go, we're passing over the sky some. And if you, yeah, so thank you to everybody that supports. And commenting and questions help with ideas, so feel free. And feel free to tag me on social media if you follow along with something. I'd love to see what you do. So like I said, I think scraping is key here. And setting down to experiment and not being hard on yourself is key as well. Just look at what you wind up painting and seeing, or asking yourself, should I do this? Should I do that? Etc. Because I'm really not teaching much in this video. It's experimental for me as well, and just kind of speculating on ideas. But the speculation really helps me come up with ideas. So I'm creating these horizontal marks to create this road, river-esque mark curving back into here. And using the wider, rounder side of this card to open that up. It's really wet here, so it's going to backfill. Okay. I just genuinely think that texture is necessary for the aesthetic that I want. So, yeah. Let's see. Put some grass on either side. Might even use the razor blade to scrape some out. I had a lot of fun with it yesterday. It's kind of been my exploratory go-to for my whites lately. Masking fluid, I unfortunately just don't have the patience for it. Whitewash I like, but I like to keep it separate from my watercolor palette because of its ability to just spread that chalkiness to everything. In fact, you can see the last time I used it that I have the whitewash from when I was pulling off some of this right here. So there's that. The magic eraser kind of gets a little too wide and spongy. I have a little bit of difficulty controlling the size of that. Let me look at it through here. It seems more natural, but it also has kind of an unfinished feel to it. I don't really glaze with watercolors, but in my last video I found myself thinking about that, where I was working with the two colors. And then I find myself thinking the same thing here. I'm not liking that. That's the great thing about watercolor. If you don't like it, you can erase it or go back over it. Let's take the number 1. Oh, here's the number 4. I think after this video, I'm going to film a time-lapse experiment with still life, just because those have been very exploratory and longer than these videos. And I'm not sure if people want to see the still life approaches. But I found, while Hammy was climbing around on top of stuff, a packet of fake eggs I got from the craft store. I think that would be a great still life subject. If you ever need like still life stuff, go thrifting. That or flea markets, looking cheap, you could find some fun cheap stuff to try out. You also find ugly things because you don't have to worry about trying to make it look pretty. It's funny, there's one still life painter, flower painter, that I absolutely adore, Fantin Lafleur. And he was like the go-to guy for flowers, I think in the 1800s, that everybody wanted, or everybody had his paintings. But he really wanted to paint people, or I think mythological scenes. And he was just so kind of typecasted as painting flowers, that his other stuff didn't really take off. I think somewhere I was reading that they think some of his wife's work, who was also painted flowers, was mislabeled as his. Let's pull a tree out. Now I'm going to pull this tree out a little bit different. I'm going to pull it out and over to this top. In the last video I commented how I often will pull trees out and have them face towards the center. Let's do that. Let's pull some sharp edge. It also feels like the raw umber is just more able to give texture to it. Just it wants to work easier than the burnt sienna. I think siennas are a synthetic rust or just rust. Well, the umbers might be a clay base. Maybe that's why the pigment itself causing some differences. Yeah, we're going to wind up using the razor blade in here. Let's see, I'll come back over it. Just kind of dancing the edge of the scraping tool around, letting different shapes happen. Okay. Let's see, anything else we want? I'm going to bring this to a point. That's kind of the bad thing about the well-worn hate brush. I can't talk today. It doesn't want to get sharp. Around those trees down here. I'm going to grab my number 4. I had another idea just now. So I rinsed off the hake brush that had all the ultramarine on it, and therefore my water is ultramarine-y. So it has me wondering, what if we mixed up like kind of a soupy ultramarine water and used that for our water, like I'm doing now, and how that would affect the other tube, the other pigment. Building up a whole bunch of trees here. And okay. Those grasses kind of curve over some. Okay, I'm going to do a dry off, and then we'll see what we want to do next. All right, so I'm going to use the razor blade to scrape in, and then I'll kind of talk as I kind of scrape. Now, while I do that, just remember, if you use a razor blade, just be careful and utilize it on dry paper. The wet paper won't scrape, or it just doesn't work that well. So now here are 2 ideas. One is that this color combination, the raw umber and the the raw umber and the ultramarine are feeling more natural to me, rather than the burnt sienna and the ultramarine. So I think it might be obvious that the color combination that you're looking for that would work, it takes a little bit of thought and a little bit of experimentation with. Here I have the cooler earth tone with the cooler blue. In the burnt sienna, we have the warmer earth tone and the cooler blue. So that just seemed to create too much contrast between the two. That being said, the raw umber for the water, if I was to just do a raw umber painting, it would be a monochromatic painting and it would have a feeling of its own. But due to the ultramarine, this is giving the water a muddy feel. Now, I'm down in Louisiana and we have tons of muddy water, like all over. But if I wanted to be representational, and maybe I didn't want to have that muddy water, I was thinking that some of the ultramarine blue would work in this area. Now, considering I don't want to mix in these experiments, I think that I could scrape it back and I could put ultramarine into these white areas. I could also glaze on top in the ultramarine, though I don't know if I'm ready for that with the experiments. But notice how that's a third time I've mentioned glazing. So that'll most likely be the way to go. Or maybe just a heavier dry brush on top. So those are some ideas. You can use a pocket knife as well. I've been cleaning the house, so I'd found some. You know how I like to experiment with all different types of art. I had tried the soft wood carving and experimented with that about a few years ago. And then if I'm not using a supply, I wind up passing it along to other artists in the area. I just recently gave some alternative photochemicals to my buddy Ryan, and he has been producing very cool experiments with cyanotype. So, you know, help out your other local artists and work together. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, so that makes it more lively, adding that white on top. But I do think we should put some ultramarine just to see. So take a look at that. Let me know what you think. And then once we start adding some blue in here, let's see what you think. There you go, a few light touches. It gives the feel of it. I'm not too pleased with that area. I'm going to move on to a different spot rather than just playing in that one location. And let's add some foliage. Push it a little bit closer. Add some brush down below. Let's go sideways along that. Create some bark texture as well as some growth around it, just so it's not a bland scrape happening. We'll grab our number 1. Some unique marks that are thinner. There you go. Splash on top of these scrapes. Once again, texture. I do like the way that blue looks behind this, though. I might just be doing what's called blocking in, but usually they'll paint the color in and then modify over that. So is that essentially what I'm doing, is just blocking in? I'll ask some other art friends. But in my mind, that goes back to college, where we would look at the background for a still life or a model. We would lay down the oil from it with the palette knife. We would look for kind of the tone and color of the hair, lay it down. Look for the side of the head, lay it down. And we're kind of building up, almost kind of carving a model with the oil. I do really like that blue coming through. And I think that this whole experiment was worth that spot right there. Let's see. There we go. Let's see, anything else we want? I think it's time for our dry off and signing it. I'm not sure there's anything else that I really want to experiment with this one. So let's dry it off and see how it looks. Okay, so there you have it. I think that this is definitely a push in the right direction from this original color combination. So that's what it is. It's all experimenting. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will be back soon with more videos. Y'all take care. Bye.